I'm not looking to make any crazy new cutting-edge medical prosthetic arms or anything like that, but I do want to upgrade my body. And that leaves us with this thought: how might we improve the human body using technology?
Oh, okay. I need to change my project. Yep, I need to change my project.
So I did. Hi, my name's Kyle, and I want to know, have you ever thought what would happen if the Earth just stopped spinning? Half the planet frozen over and half scorched to a crisp, a small sliver of livable land between the harsh environments. With billions dead, only a few lucky colonies survived. This is the possible future I imagined as the setting for my project. In this project, I'm designing a prop. More specifically, a set of protective armor that the inhabitants of this tidally locked Earth would wear to protect them from the scorching sun. As I started designing this armor, my first idea was to make a wearable tech gauntlet that would modulate the wearer's body temperature to keep it in a safe range. I did this by using a thermoelectric cooler and a heating pad, hooked up to an Arduino to control them. I was able to successfully make this prototype, however it was very chunky in order to fit all the electronics, and it wasn't what I wanted in the end. So I went back to the drawing board. I considered remaking the gauntlet using more streamlined electronics. To do this, I did some research into custom microcontrollers and conductive thread, which would allow me to integrate the electronics into a piece of clothing. This idea I ended up getting rid of as well. Recently, I've been fascinated by the idea of 3D printed rocket engines. A YouTuber by the name of Intexa has been making a lot of different types of engine in a lot of different materials. One of the materials he uses is a porcelain/UV resin mixture, and this inspired me to put my own twist on it. So I got in contact with Intexa and asked him a few questions about the porcelain mixture he uses, and some other questions about my project. He said about how in 10 years, full-size rocket engines could become 3D printed, and about how composite materials may be used. So from this, I decided to make armor that uses a material to help regulate the body temperature instead of electronics. To do this, I did some research into materials. I tested mixing different types of resin with plaster to see which would have the best result. I came to a conclusion that a mix of plaster and polyurethane resin was the best, as it has a very low thermal conductivity and when painted white makes a great heat reflector. After this came testing. I started by making some square blanks to test how much plaster I should be adding. I found that the more plaster added, the more the material foams up, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. This makes the material have a lower thermal conductivity, however it also makes it harder to cast. Once these tests were done, I painted half of them white and left them in the sun to see if I could feel a temperature difference. I was happy to find that the white side felt colder than room temperature after being in the sun for around an hour. Now I knew the material was working, I was able to start thinking about the form of it. Since I had inspiration for the material from the rocket engines, I thought I could also take some inspiration for the design. Rocket engines often use a thing called isogrid structures. These are an isometric style of grid that's often used to increase the strength of the engine without having to increase the thickness. So I decided to use that as the basis of my design. The first design I was going with was a hexagonal disc shape with the isogrid design on top of that tessellates. This idea was okay, however, in making a few of them, I decided the design in reality was a bit underwhelming. But that's when I came up with my final design. A simple isogrid that the material I made slots into. This makes the form be able to fit anyone and it looks a lot nicer. So I started with this prototype. The grid is 3D printed glued onto a t-shirt material, with the inner triangles stuck to the material. However, this was very chunky and the 1mm gap I put between the triangles and the grid was far too much. I then realised it would be so much quicker to just laser cut the grid out of 3mm acrylic sheet. This comes at a trade-off, as although it's a lot quicker to make, it makes a lot more waste. I also started experimenting with using cork instead of cotton fabric. This is because cork also has a very low thermal conductivity. I did another quick experiment of using the grid as a guide to stick the triangles down to the fabric, and it worked really well. However, I didn't have much time to experiment with this method, but would like to go back and play with it as it adds a lot more flexibility to the armour. And after all that, I came to the final design. This is a fabric backing that glues onto the grid and the triangles to hold it all together. The reason I like this design so much is due to the fact that with this pattern you can make any armour for any part of the body, and due to the inhabitants making it themselves, they may all put their own spin on the patterns. I hope you enjoyed this video. This project was a lot of fun to work with, however I still don't feel like it's quite done. It feels like there's this whole universe I still have to explore, which I will do in my own time. However, I didn't have enough time to do this before the video. If you're interested in this and want to know more, you can find it on my Wiki Factory page. But thanks for watching.